Okay, we're live now. So, good afternoon, everyone in India, and good morning or good evening, depending on where you are joining us from the world. I am Tathagata, the co-founder and CXO of Immersive Trails, as you all know me. And today I have the pleasure to have Zahra with me from Iran. She is joining from Shiraz, and she is a travel consultant for Iran on tour. And this uh, session today is about Iran, where we will talk about my experience when I went to Iran. We'll talk about different cities of Iran that we'll be visiting, and we'll also answer your questions. So if you have any questions, many of you have asked me questions privately, so we will answer those. And if you have any other questions, then please feel free to write in the comment section, and we will take them up. So Zahra, I would uh, hand over to you and ask you to introduce yourself, about what you
Thank
do,
you.
and then we can take it forward.
Thank you very much, Dr. Neogi. I'm Zahra with Iran on Tour team. It's a pleasure to be with you all, and I will be happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right. So Zahra, you are based out of Shiraz, and Calcutta, like Rabindranath Tagore, had been to Shiraz in 1932 and had visited the tomb of Hafiz and had a poetic sort of conference over there. Um, so, can you tell us a little more about the history and literature of Shiraz? And we can start from there because Shiraz is one of the important cities that we will be visiting during the tour.
Sure, with pleasure. So Shiraz, my hometown, is called the cultural capital of Iran. The reason is that it dates back to over, I think, 10 centuries, and they have found some of the most important highlights of Iran, the ancient sites like Persepolis and Pasargadi, which is the tomb of Cyrus the Great and the collection of palaces that Achaemenid Iranians created outside Shiraz. It is also called the city of poetry and culture because some of Iran's most important poets and literary figures were born or lived in Shiraz. The main one that you pointed out is Hafez, who Tagore knew and was interested in and was inspired by. And the other one is Sadi, which is the master of Persian speech. So these figures, along with other Shirazi figures, created the present Persian culture and had a lot of influence on it. Shiraz was also important in other centuries like Zand dynasty, which was a short period of peace in Iran, and this king contributed a lot to the foundation of Shiraz as the present city.
Thank you for that. So when I went to Shiraz, which was last month, it was really a pleasure to meet the entire team, and they were very
The pleasure
welcoming.
is
And
ours.
it was my introduction to Iran. And I will be very honest. I was very apprehensive, and I asked them several tons of questions. We exchanged more than 100 emails before I decided to go there with Agniv, my friend, and it was a place where I instantly connected with because the cultural aspect of it is very, very powerful, and it just overpowers you. The culture, the ambience, and everything. It just is overpowering. And as an archaeologist, I obviously found the sites of Persepolis and Pasargad very interesting. Also, Nakhshe Rustam, which is probably one of my favorite sites. Personally, I would rank it over Persepolis as well, and I wish I wish I could go into the tombs, but that's not possible. But yes, so we will be seeing all of these things from Shiraz, centering Shiraz, and we will be seeing Shiraz during the tour as well. And I think from there we move north to the desert, to Yazd. So if you can just say a little bit about Yazd and what we will see there, then that would be great.
Yeah, sure. So, Yazd is one of the most special places in Iran. The reason is that it's located in the central desert of Iran, which is called the Lut Desert and the Central Desert. And it's a civilization built inside the desert. So that's what makes it very interesting. It is a great example of sustainable life. The people there adapted their life and their architecture to the desert and created some kinds of wind towers and systems and canal systems, which are underground water channels to make life possible. So they drew water from the nearby mountains and they stored water to keep life going in that region. So the architecture is very interesting there. But what makes Yazd even more interesting is that after the arrival of Islam in Iran, Zoroastrian people who wanted to flee Muslims of that time gathered in Yazd and its surrounding places, creating villages there. So, again, today, Yazd has a large population of Zoroastrians. And you can see Zoroastrian people in the Zoroastrian neighborhood or in Fahda neighborhood. Plus, there are some sites that remain from those heritages, which are like some towers that they used for sky burial. Or we have a great fire temple with a fire that has been burning for over a century.
So interestingly, Yazd was also like has a lot of connections with Western India because a lot of people, Zoroastrian community, the Parsis who fled from Iran with the arrival of Islam, they ended up in Gujarat in Western India. And gradually they started their businesses, they spread across the Western coast. And then in the early 1800s, they came to Calcutta because it was a thriving town, thriving city at that point, and they built fire temples here as well. There is a Tower of Silence where burials, like the sky burials, still happen among the Parsi community. And very interestingly, I was surprised to see that it was a Gujarati Parsi from Manikji, Rustamji, Limji, who actually went to Persia to ask for the king to request him to remove the religious tax, and he built um, uh, Tower of Silence in Yazd, and he was buried.
Interesting.
Like he was after his death, his body was placed there. So there are a lot of
Mhm.
connections with India, and we will be exploring all of
Absolutely.
these. We'll be actually going to a fire temple, unlike here where going inside fire temples are prohibited. Um, in Iran, it's absolutely fine, and the community actually shows their heritage and their culture by themselves. So the fire temple in Yazd has a museum attached to it and an art gallery attached to it, and it's a very interesting, very nice place. And we will also be having a dinner with Zoroastrian family, if I'm not wrong,
Uh,
um, a traditional Zoroastrian dinner, which is slightly different from the Parsi food that you have in India, because Indian Parsi food has a lot of local, like Indian, obviously Indian ingredients, spices, and all
mhm.
of that. So it's slightly different from that. So you will be enjoying it if you come to the tour, and you will be able to, interact with the community, talk about their history and their culture, and learn a lot from the museum that's there along with the fire temple. Um, Yeah,
Absolutely.
so thank you for that, Zahra. So next we are
Thank you.
moving up
Uh,
to, yeah,
Before we move on to the next part, I think I need to correct myself. I think I mentioned that it's over a century old, the fire, but the fire has been burning for over 1500 years. I needed to correct
yeah. So they
myself.
have moved the fire to
To
I'm
different
forgetting the
places, so
name,
it has
Naran,
become a
Sharan.
Bahran fire.
Hmm. Yeah, and then they moved it to the fire temple when it was built. So it's the fire is
Exactly.
constantly burning. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
Um, all right. Yeah. So thank you for that. Next, we move on to
Thank you.
the city of uh, Isfahan, right? Um, and
Yes.
it's um, Isfahan is, I mean, my first perception was awe-inspiring. Just going to the square, even when the sites were closed, it was at night. It was fantastic. So, can you tell us a little more about Isfahan and what people will do and see, and the Armenian history there and stuff?
Yeah, sure. I'm so glad to hear that you liked your experience in Iran. Isfahan is, I can say, the climax of Islamic architecture in Iran because the Safavid kings made it as it is, and they were Muslims. So they wanted to create a great Islamic hub because it was the golden age of Islam. So they created a collection of palaces and mosques to show the majesty that they had. And they gathered the best architects and craftsmen from around Iran and from outside Iran, because if you know, the master architect of Naqsh Jahan Square is originally from Lebanon, not Iranian, and he contributed a lot to Iranian culture, not just architecture. We have a kind of bread remaining from his time. And there in Naqsh Jahan Square that you mentioned, we have a collection of great mosques with great architecture and a very intricate designs, which I love, and the Great Bazaar where I can always go for shopping. Beautiful handicrafts. There's also Chelsea Palace and the bridges that they made to connect the two parts of the city. In the past, one part of the city was dedicated to Muslims, the other part was dedicated to the Armenian people, who the Safavid king brought from Armenia to save them from the border because there was war going on there. And also, they contributed a lot to the architecture and the culture of Isfahan. And they also created churches, cathedrals in their own neighborhood, which are now great places to visit, especially one cathedral.
And I think I'll add to that in our experience when we went there in Isfahan, we had the surprise of our life because we found someone who actually had lived in Calcutta for 14 years. We actually had dinner with his family, and that was really surprising. And we were like talking about Calcutta. It felt like home. We chatted and chatted for hours. We could have chatted the whole night, but obviously it was we were their guests, so we didn't want to do that, be rude. And but it was really really surprising to see how many people and how many cultural parallels we share with Iran. And
Exactly.
yeah, so we will, when in our tour, we will also have a dinner hosted by an Armenian family. We
Yeah,
will
definitely.
also be visiting the Vank Cathedral. We will be visiting the bridges as well as the uh, Naqsh Jahan Square. and the Grand Bazaar, which is my absolute, like, a place where you get wowed by it. Like, I can't
Yeah,
even explain how the
yeah,
experience is
exactly.
uh, over there. And from Isfahan, sorry, we are doing it fast because we don't have all day to. I can talk all day about Iran, but we don't have that much time. So next we move to Kashan, uh, and Kashan, just a little bit of a background.
Kashan is also a kind of desert city. Kashan, Isfahan, and Yaz, they're all desert cities. They're in the middle of desert. And they have beautiful deserts around them. But what makes Kashan very special is that it has um, the most beautiful Persian style mansions in them. So the architecture of these mansions and the intricacy in the details, the paintings, the general architecture make them very special. Maybe you can call them the best mansions, Persian mansions you can find in Iran. Besides that, there is a mosque and a very beautiful garden, which is also a Persian garden. I forgot to mention the specialty about Persian gardens. I think I saw a documentary that Persian gardens also exist in India.
Yeah,
Persian style gardens with their special water channels, creating that system inside them, and also the symmetry created in the gardens. So, Fin Garden is also one of the best examples of Persian gardens in Kashan, plus a mosque that is also a school for theology.
yeah, and the Kashan Bazaar is like the centerpiece of the Kashan Bazaar is the ceiling is something that is
Yeah.
like sitting underneath that and having a tea was very what was a very good experience. Um, and so from Kashan, I think we moved to Abhyane, which is also very, like, it's a mountain city. It was snowing when we were there, and it was a, like, it's a World Heritage Town, or World Heritage to be listed as a World Heritage Town. And this gives you, I think, a relaxing feeling just after a very extensive tour. So you just relax a couple of days in Nambiane before you go and dive into the madness of Tehran, which is like any big city in the world. Um,
Yeah.
so, can you tell us a little more about Abhyane and what we will do in Tehran as well, before we take the questions up?
Yeah, sure. So Abiane is a terraced village, which is also called the Red Village because of the color of the houses. When you look at them, they have a terracotta color, a reddish color. And the terraced village has traditional style houses in it. Also, there are historical sites inside that you can visit. The general vibe of the village is lovely and beautiful, and it's apart from the desert. So you are entering the colder part of Iran. You're approaching Tehran, so it's colder. You might experience snow even there, and what makes Aviana more special is the special dress code of the women. So they have a special traditional clothing with flower patterns on them, and the general vibe is beautiful. But when you move towards Tehran, you can also visit one of the most important religious sites in Iran, which is dazzling with its mirror work. And it's the burial place of a lady in one of the, from the descendants of Prophet Muhammad. After that, you enter the crazy Tehran. But the crazy Tehran has beautiful places like Golestan Palace, which is the palace of one of the last kings of Iran. The collection is beautiful. There are a collection of palaces, mainly the treasures that are kept inside, but the architecture is also interesting. There's also the Carpet Museum, the National Museum of Iran, which is, I think, the most important museum in Iran with the most precious artifacts kept there. Based on your itinerary, the Jewelry Museum will most probably be open because it's open on special days and on special hours. But it's also very dazzling and very striking because it's all jewelry. And I think that's it.
Yeah, so thank you. Tehran was actually like I like the Azadi Tower at night because of the lighting and all of that. It
Yeah.
looked very beautiful. And also there's I like when we went, the sites were closed because of pollution. But the Grand Bazaar was open, and it was very interesting walking through the Grand Bazaar with all everyone buying and selling, and the musicians playing music. So I also have made a video and I've posted it on Facebook that has got a lot of views. So that is something to look forward to. We didn't have that much time in Tehran, so we didn't visit that many places. But it's the capital, it's the big city, so you will experience whatever you can expect from a big city as well from there. Um, so thank you, Zahra, for taking us through the tour.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll now come to the questions that we have that have been asked to me. So the first question and the most important question is security. Is Iran at war at this time?
Thank you. It has been a pleasure to explain Iran to our dear guests. Is Iran safe? Yes, it is safe because Iran is far from the war that is going on, the unfortunate war that is going on. And any threat that is against Iran is a political threat. And um, it's a good thing that Iranian people feel safe about this war, and they think that it will not affect civilians and ordinary people. It is a political war between the governments. So far, never has a civilian place or any tourists been in danger in Iran. And
I
I
mean, I
mean,
should jump in there. I should
yeah,
jump in here and say that
yeah,
I never felt unsafe. But so as a traveler with a friend, going with a friend, just two people, and obviously Yusuf, who was very kind as well, and you guys. We never we felt very well taken care of, and I did not see
yeah.
a like. I keep on telling this to my friends who ask me about Iran that I did not see a single gun during the entire trip. I did not see. I did not see any war happening. So, and this is not me saying just saying it for you to buy the tour. It is just the truth. We did not experience any sort of threat during our trip, and which was just back in December when it was supposed to be very dangerous.
Absolutely. So I think the main reason is that we have a preconception about Iran because of all the news that we hear about it. But the truth about Iran is seen by Iranians and the tourists who visit Iran and have had the experience of visiting Iran. And uh, I think that the reason that makes Iran very safe for tourists is that Iranians are very welcoming of guests, and they believe that they are responsible for the people who visit their country, and this makes tourists even safer in Iran, even safer than the Iranians themselves. In general, Iran is very safe. I mean, uh, the um, the statistics shows that Iran is one of the safest countries, not just for Iranians but also for tourists. And the ongoing war, I mean, even in the highlight, in the climax of the tensions that was going on between Iran and Israel, Iran was safe to the civilians because the only targets were military targets or strategic political targets. And the Iranians felt safe. I think you might have seen some videos of Iranians on the rooftops when there were exchanges of things going on, and Iranians didn't feel any danger because they knew that they are safe from this war. And I think it has political reasons. Um, but in general, we think that Iran will not be a target, the civilians will not be a target. And the only change that might happen to the schedule of the tourists because of the tensions that might happen and might not happen is the changes in the schedule of the flights, which will be manageable. We have had experiences of these changes in the flight schedules before. We even had an American tourist visiting Iran in the climax of the tensions, and we managed to get him another flight out of Iran because, you know, when the sky becomes clear, it is just for a limited time, for example, 6 hours, 12 hours. So we will be able to reschedule the flights for the departure.
All right. Thank you for the reassurances. And thank you for explaining it so beautifully. My next question is that are women safe in Iran if they're traveling alone?
Um, it's a little funny for an Iranian to hear
I
that
know,
because,
I
yeah,
know because I when I say that I felt safe, a lot of people told me that you are not a woman. So
yeah.
I don't know how to answer this.
Yeah, that's totally understandable. But I say that it's funny because I totally feel safe in Iran as a woman, traveling around, working as a woman, and being active as a woman. So tourists ask me that question a lot before they come to Iran. And when they visit me, they laugh with me because all their preconceptions change. Women are living freely like men in Iran. Um, and the only thing that women should tolerate is a piece of scarf on their head, which is based on the Iranian rules, and modest clothing. This is the Iranian rule at the moment. And we recommend it to the tourists to cover their hair and have just modest clothing. It shouldn't be covering very long or very bothering. Just a simple blouse with long sleeves and long pants would be enough. And I think the experiences of previous travelers to Iran would be very helpful to the people who want to visit.
Yeah, thank you for that. From my experience, like I know that I'm a man and I don't have that perspective, but I have seen women alone doing their work, doing their jobs, even at 8, 9 p.m. at night. I have seen men and women, couples in different places, different cities. And it's not just in Shiraz or just in Tehran or just in Yazd, but everywhere. And I did not, from my perspective, being a man, from my perspective, I did not feel that women were unsafe at any point. But yeah, I mean, I had to ask that question because I got that question quite a lot. Um, so the next question is about flights. what happens if, say, for example, the flight is suddenly canceled, and because Indians, unlike Americans who has visa on arrival for many countries, Indians don't. So what happens if the flight is canceled for Indians suddenly?
Thank you.
Like,
It's a
what is
very
the
good
plan B?
question. Yeah, although there is a very small percentage of that happening, because during my own experience, I have been working in the tourism industry for 5 years. It has happened only once to one of our tourists because of the political tensions, the climax of the tensions that we had with Israel. Um, the only thing that happened was that there was a rescheduling of the flight, but our guest wanted to leave Iran sooner because he was a tour guide and he had a tour starting in Iraq. So he could stay and join the rescheduled flight. But since he needed to leave earlier for his Iraq tour to start, we helped him to book another flight, which was earlier, I think in 7 or 8 hours later than his originally planned flight. And he left Iran with that flight. But we also had an alternative for him, which was to drive him to the Iraqi border to Kermanshah or to Khuzestan province, and so that he can leave from the border, from the road. But fortunately, we could find him near replacement, and he was able to leave Iran with that flight. For Indians, because there are not free visa to the neighboring countries of Iran. It's Armenia who is visa on arrival, but based on what we checked, they need to have an e-visa. So the only replacement would be Qatar, which has a water border with Iran. So the chance is very, very small for that to happen, because even if the flights get canceled, we will book them another flight to go back home. But I mean, this is the last resort if there are no flights, which I think has a very
Will
low
not happen.
chance.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we will transfer the guests to Bandar Abbas, which is the southern border port of Iran, and we will uh, accompany you to Qatar so that you can leave Qatar to India. So this is the last resort. And we will provide our dear guests with accommodation until they leave Iran.
Yes, I just want to reiterate that if any changes of plan happens, it is our responsibility, our as an Immersive Trails and Iran on Tours responsibility. So you are in our hands, and you'll like probably uh, are worrying that you will have to pay extra or something, but you are in our hands. You know, you are in safe hands there. And I'm saying this on
May
video.
I
This video
mention
is
something?
sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that it's a real pleasure for Iran on Tour to work with Immersive Trails. The reason is that I think we have um, similar values, which connects us together. And this value is that we care about our guests. Our guests are our guests. They're not just tourists and customers. We treat our guests like Iranians, and Iranians are taught that we should be protective of our guests. So we will keep them safe until they leave Iran. And this is the assurance that I thought that I should give to our guests.
Thank you, Zara. Yes. And then my final question, and that is about money, because we know that, like we hear that obviously Iran is not connected with the international banking networks and all of that. So, but there is a misconception that Iran doesn't have ATMs or that Iran doesn't have a card system, like a credit card system, which was all wiped out when I reached there, because I've seen several banks, several ATMs, several the people only using digital currency. So, what is the solution for, like, how do people should people carry cash, and how would they be able to use it in Iran?
The first thing to consider is that the packages are full board or can be made full board so that um, um, the guests need to bring less cash with them. Cash is one of the solutions because Iran also offers tourist bank cards, which are another choice. That you mentioned that Iran does have ATMs and you can use the ATMs. These tourist bank cards are for those who are not comfortable with carrying cash around. And cash is okay because you can exchange money anywhere around Iran upon arrival or in the cities with the help of your guides. But if you prefer not to carry cash, we can pre order some cards for you. They will arrive to your hotel and your first hotel. And a gentleman from that card companies comes to your hotel and they will receive the cash and charge your card so that you don't need to use the cash around in Iran. You will use the card. You can use it with POS devices and with some ATMs around Iran, and you can withdraw cash, Iranian cash with them. If anything remains in the cards, they will PayPal it back to your account. But I think PayPal is the only choice with one of the card companies. But with another company that we work directly with, it's related to one of the local banks in Iran. We can withdraw it and hand it back to you. The I think you don't need to worry about cash because uh, even if you run out of cash, we are with you. So we can make payments for the services that are not included in the package, and we will talk about it later. So no worries about money and cash in Iran.
Thank you for that. And my final question, sorry, I said that the last one was final, but this one just came into my
Not
mind.
at all.
Um, that is SIM cards. For me, I had an international roaming on Airtel, which is the Indian SIM card only Indian SIM card provider that works in Iran. If you don't have Airtel, then what are the SIM card options once you reach Iran?
The best option in Iran is to buy a SIM card on arrival at the airport because the airports have some SIM card booths that sell SIM cards, Iranian local SIM cards to tourists, and that's the best option. Even if you forget, or even if you don't feel like you need a SIM card in the beginning, but you change your mind, and we can get you SIM cards, local SIM cards ourselves, and hand in them to you, and you can use the data on them. So wherever you go during your trip, with the exception of some parts of the road trips, because the reception might not be good at some parts of the road trips. But around the villages, around the cities, inside the cities, you will have good reception, and you will have internet access, or you can make phone calls with the local SIM cards.
All right, thank you very much. So that is
You're
all
welcome.
from my end. But if you want to add something, if you want to say something else to end the conversation, please feel free to do so. And then we will
Thank you.
put this up on our social media, and we'll see how many questions we get, and we'll pass on the questions to you later.
Sure, thank you. It was a real pleasure to talk with you and to be present for our guests. I will be happy to answer any questions that they have, and we will be more than happy to host and receive.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, Zara. Thank you, and
Thank you.
please send my regards to your team, and I will
Sure.
connect with you offline soon.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Have a nice
Yeah,
day.
you too. You too. Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Goodbye. Thank you.